$10,000 a year for childcare in the U.S., and often it's a lot more than that. Prices that are unaffordable for many Americans, and it could get a lot worse on September 30th. That's when the Emergency Child Care Fund that Congress allocated during the pandemic, which included $24 billion in child care stabilization grants, is set to expire. Here to discuss is the editor of Forbes Women, Maggie McGrath, an MSNBC contributor and vice chair of the Forbes and Know Your Value 3050 Summit, Huma Abedin. Maggie, your team's been covering this extensively at Forbes Women. Walk us through some of the biggest ramifications for families, child care facilities, and the broader economy.
Well, Mika, the ramifications could be devastating here. There are an estimated 70,000 child care facilities that could close as a result of this lost funding, and more than 3 million children could lose their spots in child care. It's worth noting that even if all those facilities don't close, there will be kids who lose their spots because tuition will go up because of the lost funding, and it will become even more unaffordable. Meanwhile, the cost to parents, $9 billion in lost earnings from reduced working hours or leaving the workforce entirely, and then the cost to employers and state economies is $10 billion because of disruptions to the workforce. And I actually spoke with Reshma Saujani, the founder of Girls Who Code and Moms First, about this issue. She advocates for better policies for parents, and she says her phone is ringing off the hook from CEOs who are deeply worried about this issue, and she is encouraging all business leaders to use their platform to advocate for more support for childcare because it is the key to unlocking American innovation, a fully participating workforce.
And Huma, I'm thinking about the moms who are going to be impacted here, many who return to the workforce in record numbers since the pandemic wound down. How are they going to get childcare, and how concerned are you about this sort of threatening women's recent workforce gains?
You know, I think to Maggie's point, it's not just devastating for women, but it's devastating to their families, to childcare providers, and ultimately to our economy. I mean, when you think about this investment that the federal government made 2 years ago in this emergency spending, this $24 billion that you just referenced, that really at the time was kind of an experiment in that it's the largest investment the federal government has made in U.S. history that went specifically towards childcare. Fast forward 2 years later, what was the impact of that investment? You have 77.8% of women between the ages of 25 and 54 who are either working or looking for work. 76% of women of working age were working as of this June. You have 10%, the workplace gender gap has actually shrunk to 10.5% as of August, which is a record low. And finally, which when you think about this number, 70% of women who have children under the age of 5 were employed in June of this year. These are measurable numbers. And if you're going to take all of that away, at a time when childcare costs are going up, not down, families are paying more for childcare than they are for their mortgage. These are ramifications that we're not just, we're not standing at a cliff. We're about to get pushed off in a week, and Congress has to act very rapidly, or we're going to be in the midst of a crisis that we've already, had going on and will only get worse.
So we'll be following that. Huma, keep us posted on that. And before we go, Maggie, I want to switch gears because we do have some exciting news about Forbes and Know Your Value's upcoming 50 over 50 global lists. You remember, we went global like the minute our first list went out in the U.S. because of the tremendous success. Tell our viewers the news.
Yes, I am thrilled to announce that nominations for the third annual 50 over 50 Asia and 50 over 50 EMEA lists are now open. We are opening them earlier than ever before thanks to reader demand. People have wanted to submit names, so we have the ability to do that now. We are looking for women over the age of 50 who are creating their greatest professional impact in Asia, in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Africa. Our biggest rule, your birth date has to end in 1972 or earlier. If you're born in 73 or later, you're too young. And we are, as ever, looking across every sector for founders, for CEOs, for scientific visionaries, for culture creators. So if that describes you or someone you admire, please go to Forbes.com to nominate them today. You have until December 10th to do so.
I love these lists because they flip the script on every stereotype. We are finding so many women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s reaching their greatest success and their highest impact. And yes, you cannot be on the list if you're 49 and a half. You're too young. I love being able to say that. Maggie McGrath and Huma Abedin, you're both too young. Thank you both very much. You can learn more about the 50 over 50 nominations process for our upcoming global lists at both Forbes.com and KnowYourValue.com. And